What's going on, everybody? It is lividfray. Hope you all are doing very well today, and welcome back to another episode of Just the Good Stuff, where I show you only the good stuff from the vendor restocks each week. Starting off right here inside the terminal, we do have a Liberator for sale that I would recommend, with Commanding, Destructive, and Brutal. You can just roll Brutal over for Determined, and then you have a really good weapon for the Commanding, Determined Striker method. And if you need assistance on showcasing what that is, I'll go ahead and link my Pier 93 video in the description, where I do use the Commanding Striker method on a Bullfrog. It's pretty fun to use, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend this weapon, but if you don't have any weapons to do that method and you're interested in trying it, these are the good rolls. It's just that the Liberator has a Police M4 recoil variant, so just keep that in mind that it's going to have some difficult handling. The next safe house that we're heading over to is all the way over at the Ward. Alright, we've made it over to the Ward safe house. This vendor is going to be selling a performance mod for us this week. 4% Secret Mine damage mod, really straightforward. Would recommend these for your tactician builds. They're going to heavily increase the bleed damage that's done by the Secret Mine, as well as the explosive damage. Our next vendor is going to be over at the Southpaw safe house. Alright, we made it over to Southpaw, so this vendor is going to be selling a really good mod for us this week. Firearms 265 on 3200 health. These work really well for PvP builds, and if you're wanting to use it on like a 9k stamina striker and you need some firearm mods to unlock those gun talents, I would highly recommend these. The higher your health pool is, the more you're going to receive from the striker 6-piece bonus, so I would definitely recommend using these on that kind of build. Our next vendor is going to be all the way up at DZ09 Saferoom, so I'm going to head up there and then I'll meet you guys there. Alright, I've made it over to the DZ09 vendor. This vendor is actually selling a vertical grip, and this vertical grip is maxed out optimal range. I personally like optimal range grips on the Showstopper. I think that it's one of the more effective weapon mods to be utilizing, and it does give you a really big chunk. This one just happens to be maxed out with critical hit damage, and it gives reload speed as well. So I'd highly recommend getting this one if you don't have anything like this just yet, but it is Darkstone credits, and if you don't feel like buying it, that's completely understandable. The next vendor we're going to head over to is DZ05 Saferoom. That vendor has two items that I want to be showing you guys, so let me head over there and I'll meet you guys there. Alright, I've made it to the DZ05 Saferoom. This vendor is selling two weapon attachments that I'm recommending. Starting off first with this Osprey suppressor. We have maxed out accuracy on this. This is the primary reason why I'm recommending this, mainly for your cool-headed pistols. We also have optimal range and stability. Now, Op did mention to me that ideally you would probably want something along the lines of headshot damage here, and I do agree. But if you're only using this on a cool-headed pistol, I don't think that that's necessary because you're not really going for damage. But if you are wanting to use something like this for a sentry build, I do think that headshot damage here is more ideal, and possibly critical hit instead of optimal range. However, if you're just using it for the aspect of the cool-headed pistol, I think this is perfect because it's going to give you that maximum accuracy, and that's really all that matters. The other item that I'm recommending here is the C79 scope. As you can see, for obvious reasons, it is like amazing rolls. We're just 0.5 off from the maximum headshot damage. But otherwise, it has max critical hit damage and chance. And then we have the headshot damage as well. Make sure you guys get a couple of these if you don't have any. They are very, very reliable to have. I would not recommend using this with your Deadeye builds because critical hit chance and headshot damage are going to be a complete waste of attributes. You're going to want something different here along the lines of like optimal range and whatever else you can get here. I would not recommend critical hit chance and damage for Deadeye, but it does have maximum critical hit damage, so if that's all you care about, at least you'll have that. Otherwise, I think that this would work perfect for any other build that you're wanting to use, so make sure you get a couple of these. Our next vendor is going to be East 46th Street, so I'm going to head over there and I'll meet you guys there. Alright, I've made it to East 46th Street. This vendor is going to be selling another firearms mod for us this week. We have a 265 firearms on 3% skill haste. These are a no-brainer. These are good for a lot of different builds. It just depends on what you'd want to use them with. The next vendor is going to be DZ 5th Avenue. This vendor is actually selling two items for us this week. One item that I would recommend is this Infantry MG5 with Accurate, Destructive, and Competent. You can either roll off Competent for something else along the lines for PvE, or you can roll off Destructive here and use something else here, like Deadly or whatever you want to use, and this is also really good for PvP. We also have this 5% Ballistic Shield Damage Resilience mod here, perfect for your D3-FNC builds. If you are wanting to check out the D3-FNC Explained video that I have, I'll leave the link for that playlist down in the description below. Our next vendor is going to be DZ West 31st Street. This vendor also has two items for sale that I would recommend. The first item that I'm going to recommend is this electronics mod. It has 263 electronics. It is under 3000 skill power, but if you don't have any of these are perfect to be starting out with until you guys get some better ones. We also have a loud vent brake for sale this week. It has maxed out critical hit damage, maxed out headshot damage, and 2% accuracy. Ideally, you would want critical hit chance here, but these are perfect to use if you don't have anything else just yet. And of course, it does come with the increased threat like they always do. Our next vendor is going to be West 34th Street, just one more checkpoint up. This vendor is going to be selling a pulse critical hit damage mod. I always recommend these when we get them. They're very reliable to have when you need them versus needing them and not having them. So if you don't have enough of these, just I'd recommend just buying it. Or if you have the blueprint for the performance mod slot, I would recommend crafting them instead, because the materials are definitely a lot easier to come by than Dark Zone credits. Our next vendor is going to be 39th Street on the west side. This vendor is also selling 2 items I'd recommend, starting out with this MP7. We have Vicious, Unforgiving, and Competent. You can either leave the roles exactly how they are, or you can change one of these top 2 is what I would recommend. You can change off Vicious for Responsive. You can change off Unforgiving for Deadly, whatever you'd want to do here. This is a really good weapon to be utilizing if you don't have the house. The next item I'm recommending is this hand stop. It is maxed out reload speed at 31%, and it has stability and critical hit damage as well. So I would definitely recommend buying these if you don't have anything like these available. And our last stop is going to be West 53rd Street. This vendor is a little bit niche. I'm going to make a video on this here pretty soon, but these are perfect to be picking up for that video. So if you guys have the credits to spare, I would recommend buying these. These are 267 electronics mods on 3% signature ability resource gain. I know this sounds strange. I recommended some of these last week too because we had 4% available last week, I think. I will explain in a video in detail why I think these are good. But for now, if you have the credits to spare, I would recommend buying 5 of them for 1 character, or more if you really want to, but I really wouldn't recommend that. I would recommend just buying 5 of them for 1 character, specifically for a reclaimer, or even a tactician support build, and I will go into detail in another video explaining why. But if you want to make sure that you have like the maxed out stat attributes, these are perfect to be buying, but they are Dark Zone credits, so I will leave that up to you guys. Alright, heading over to the blueprint vendor, starting off inside the terminal. We do have the M60 for sale this week. If you would like to use the M60, you can purchase this and craft that. USC is also available. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that blueprint. We do have the stamina gloves for sale if you wanted to craft some savage gloves. We also have a firearms mask for any tenacious users or refresh. We do have the vertical grip for sale, the foliage green one. So in reality, you could buy this and craft them and try and get maxed out ones. I have gotten maxed out mods quite a few times by doing this. You could do this instead of buying the one that's for sale inside the Dark Zone. We do also have the angled grip for sale, and the stamina mod blueprint is for sale this week. You can do this for whatever you need stamina mods for, critical hit chance, skill power, whatever you need. The electronics gear mod blueprint is also for sale. I would recommend this definitely to try and get like electronic skill power, electronic skill haste, etc. We do have a gear score 204 SRSA1 for sale. You could do this to use for cool-headed. These lower gear score items, they have a lower stat requirement, so you can unlock the same stats. You're just going to be doing less damage, but odds are if you're lowering the stat requirement to unlock mods, to unlock talents, you probably don't need damage output that much. You need the talents that comes with it, such as cool-headed, determined, etc. Would definitely recommend this. It's pretty much all I would recommend at this vendor, so I'm going to head over to Cam Clinton, and then I'll show you what's for sale over there. Alright, I made it over to Cam Clinton blueprint vendor. This vendor is selling the Model 700 blueprint. The sniper is great, but it is missing some weapon attachment slots, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend getting this, but if you have the Phoenix credits to spare, it is a really good marksman rifle to be using. Super 90 blueprint's also for sale if you're looking for a good shotgun. The firearms mask blueprint is for sale here as well for any tenacious or refresh mask needs. We do have the extended magazine blueprint here as well. I highly recommend buying this one to craft them if you don't feel like buying any of the ones that are for sale. And odds are a lot of them end up inside the Dark Zone. So if you want to save yourself some money, I would recommend just buying this. It's only 192 credits. It's very easy to obtain. We also have the small red grip for sale. This is for critical hit damage. Would recommend getting this. Performance mod is for sale, as well as the stamina gear mod blueprint. I would highly recommend both of these. SRSA1 blueprint is also for sale here, but for a 229 gear score, I would recommend the 204 in the terminal, just to make sure you're going to unlock those requirements. We do also have the Omega rifle suppressor here. This is power level 33, but this is the highest power level you can obtain at a blueprint vendor. So if you're looking for the Omega rifle suppressor blueprint, this is the highest one that you can get. We also have the vertical grip blueprint here that is power level 33. I would recommend buying this. The vertical grip is at highest level also at 33 instead of 34, so this is the highest one you can obtain here. And finally, this vendor at Camp Clinton is selling the custom M44 blueprint at 204 gear score, so this is honestly your choice. You can either do the SRSA1 or the custom M44. You're not going for damage. You are going for the talents that comes with them, so make sure that you guys just pick whichever one you prefer for that. That's going to be everything for this week's episode of Just the Good Stuff. Hopefully there's some items that you guys will be picking up this week to better your builds. Would definitely recommend those critical hit damage mods, more specifically the C79 scope. We definitely don't see those very often. Or the loud vent break as well was also a really good pick. If there was nothing this week that you guys enjoyed, there is always next week. I'll talk to you guys in the next episode. Have a great rest of your day.
Can't believe the bullshit that went down in the dark zone at the end there.
I know. We had it. Everything I told them was dead on. They made us pull out anyway.
And we left our dead behind.
Yeah, we're not supposed to do that. Hang on a second.